Magic items can be a fickle thing in some tabletop games. DMs don't want to give them out like candy, but players don't want DMs to be stingy either. And handing out a single magic item over a great period is a great way to set the party against each other fighting over it. Adventuring groups can shatter if loot isn't shared evenly and balanced carefully. Anything from a coin that always lands heads up or a magical power staff, everybody wants magical items. They make great additions to everyone's D&D stories. Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happened. So today, I bring you a tale of drama and shouting and woe, the story of the Sword of Friendship Sundered. Now, when it comes to magic items, there's a certain etiquette that most gamers follow, whether it be for an MMO or a tabletop game or a multiplayer game where people are working together and only X amount of loot drops. Priority will usually go to the person who can get the most benefit out of said item, or the person who can bring out that item's greatest potential. Say if it's a use magic device sort of item, it goes to the person that has the highest use magic device stat. Or if it's a sword that increases your strength, yes, it goes to the fighter or the warrior or whatever it happens to be. And then, if said person is not present, then it goes down to the next person and down to the next person. There's a totem of people that most gamers will go through, whether in one combination or another, when it comes to a finite amount of loot. Like say you're playing an MMO and 25 people get together to kill a dragon, and the dragon drops a sword, a magic helmet, some boots, a robe, and a belt. There's 25 people, and there's 5 or 6 items that it drops. How do you decide who gets what? So there are a lot of different philosophies when it comes to this. However, there are also really bad ways to go about this when it comes to tabletop games, because what if you have a rather large group and you're all chasing one thing? So it's not unheard of. Campaigns where you're chasing, the magic wish ring, or a magic sword, or a genie in a lamp, and you get one wish, or things like that. But what happens at the end of the day when a group of 6 people, they get that item that has a use or a finite number of uses, and everybody wants it, and they all have an equal claim to it? So this story was passed down in legend amongst my pool of people that I have played D&D with, and let it serve as a warning to yourself. If you're running a game, if you're going to play with a bunch of people all at once, a big, unwieldy group of 6 or 8 in a D&D campaign setting. Once upon a time, me and 9 friends got together all at one person's house, and let's call him David. We all got together at his house, and he wanted to play a game of 5 burning rings or 5 rings or something like that. It's an Asian themed magic and samurai and Chinese spirits kind of game. I've not actually ever played it myself, but there were 10 of us at the house, and we thought, well, God, we can't have a group of 9 people. So, who's interested in playing this, and who wants to go play, video games over in this other room? So we kind of split off to do different things. And David's house had a great room. So while they were sitting playing Five Rings, or whatever it was called, I probably should have looked this up beforehand, but whatever. While they were sitting playing Five Rings, there were maybe 5 or 6 players and David DMing. The rest of us sat in his living room to play Mario Party. And now I can go ahead and admit to you that I am one of the only people on Earth that enjoys Mario Party, because everybody I ever talk to say, oh, I freaking hate that game. You know, all freaking 9 or 10 of them that are out now. It's all based on chance, and you can't win with skill and all that. I was like, yeah, it's a board game. You know, anytime you introduce dice to anything, there's a chance that, you know, the dice will not smile upon you, especially in a video game. But I love Mario Party. I think it's a great party game. I guess that's what you would want to say. If you've got a bunch of people over and you want to do something fun and silly, Mario Party is a great thing. You know, and I knew a pair of brothers in high school that, like, that was just their thing, was playing video games and getting the platinum trophies and catching all the Pokemon and all that. They were just, video games were their lives. But they refused to play Mario Party with anybody because their superior gaming skills would not shine through while they were, like, rolling dice and moving around on a board. And I was like, yeah, it's a board game. You roll dice. You might end up in jail, like in Monopoly, or roll ones forever and not get anywhere when you're playing Sorry. That's what a board game is. I don't know. Sorry, that I got off on a tangent. Anyway, so 6 people at the table playing Five Rings, and 4 people sitting playing Mario Party, myself among them. I went over to play Mario Party because I never get to play with anybody because nobody wants to play it with me. They were like, yeah, let's play Mario Party. You know, we're not really going to devote to anything. They're just going to sit and play Five Rings. I'm like, all right. So we sit up and we're playing Mario Party. And I kind of listen because, you know, it's always interesting to see what stories other people come up with. And being within like 20 or 30 feet, you know, we could kind of hear each other's conversations while all this was going on. And the story was a very simple one. These 5 heroes from all different walks of life, from all different very honorable families of not China, wherever they were from, because again, it's an Asian-themed kind of D&D setting, and had all come together in search of a magic sword, a katana that was sharp on all sides. And I kind of lean and I mumble and I go, oh, a lightsaber. And he goes, and the guy next to me goes, oh, I see no lightsaber. That would be a copyright infringement. I see a psionic spear blade. And I go, shut up. We both saw Darkness Rising. But it was a samurai sword, or a katana, or whatever you want to call it, that when you swung it about, no matter what side that you cut it with, front, back, or either of the sides, it would still cut just as quickly. So it was basically a lightsaber. And the only problem was the entire campaign was based around finding the sword, and everybody, all 5 of these people, felt that they had a legitimate claim to keep this sword and return to their family with it. And David's intention was to see what the RP would be like if they recover the sword, to decide who had the most legitimate right to claim it and keep it. To bring honor to your family and to bring home this relic, this legendary, blade of awesome that would sit in a shrine on your family's land and bring good luck to you and make your crops grow and all that stuff. It was a legendary blade that was not meant to be wielded in battle, for its magic was too strong and it would permeate about the land wherever it rested. But it was apparently being used for ill because it was in like a casino or a gambling pit or something like that. Someplace there its powers were being misused. So I didn't listen to the entire game because they're rolling dice and like shouting things and swinging imaginary katanas around and different things like that while they're going through this casino, talking to mob bosses, taking out gangsters from from such and such era of not China and not Japan. And I'm sitting there playing Mario Party until they get up to the climax of this game. I think it was only intended to be a one-shot, because once this sword surfaced and enough people heard about it, they all kind of converged and became a party to recover it, and they would decide who got it later. Oh, we kind of hit pause on Mario Party and looked over, because suddenly they had defeated the final big bad, whoever it was, I didn't hear. And they had come into possession of this sword, this energy katana, whatever you want to call it. And suddenly all hell breaks loose. Because, and I've got my notes here just so I can remember, out of the 5 people that were there, all from different families, all from different walks of life, had all owned this sword at one point in the past. So this sword has to be like several hundred years old to pass between so many houses, and so many people have intimate knowledge of its powers. So clearly it's been in quite a few hands over time, and the fact that it ended up in this casino, this drug den, somebody gambled it away, and the owner found out what it was good for and tried to use it for his own greed. But, all the honorable families that had it before converged to reclaim it, and it went off like a powder keg. Because, and I'm not going to give everybody names, let's just say player 1, his family had forged this legendary blade, had found, the pure waters of Mount Blah and the deepest dark iron of the mines of this place, and put pixie dust over it, and all that stuff, and it took a decade to make, to infuse it with magic eternal, that it would always be sharp and never be dull and cut through anything, and blah blah. And we kept poking fun because it sounds like a lightsaber no matter how you slice it. But his family had made it, so he wanted to recover it to perhaps make more, to bring it back to its original owners, etc., etc. The player 2, his family was given this blade by the people who made it. So the blade was made for his family, with the intention that they wield it in the fields of battle, or to leave it in a shrine and pray to it and things like that. So, this sword is rightfully my family's. You gave it to us. Player 3 paid for this sword. Like, at some point, the so-and-so was so far into debt in this family, they said, well, I'll give you, 100,000 yen or 100,000 gold pieces or whatever for that magic family sword you've got there, and somebody traded it off in order to get out of some massive debt at some point in the past. So his family paid for the damn thing. It's ours, thank you very much. The next, player 4 said, well, we what was it? We dueled for that sword. We got two wooden swords to find out who was the better swordsman, who deserved to own it more. And my family won that duel between the master of this dojo and the master of this dojo, both using, the praying mantis and falling crane styles of blah-de-blah. They fought for hours on end until the sun touched the mountains. But eventually my family's dojo master felled yours, and we took the sword as it was our right, because we made that bet, and blah-de-blah. It was, you were dishonored that day, and you did not deserve to have it. My family's swordsmen are better than yours, and we deserve to have that legendary blade. So, that's 4 people, and then, and, just on and on. I don't even have notes on the 5th person, but you see all these completely legitimate claims. I made it. It was given to me. I paid for it. I earned it in a duel. Over these, over like 200 years or whatever. The sword had a very long history to it between these 4 or 5 families. So suddenly, they're sitting in a circle, and they've got this sword. I think David brought like a prop sword out or something like that. which was not a good idea either, because there's something physical for them to grab onto and say, hey, this is mine, while somebody else grabs onto it and said, hey, this is mine, and they act like 2-year-olds, pulling it back and forth. And I'm sitting there trying to concentrate on Mario Party while my friends lose their damn minds over this sword. And I was like, guys, are you okay over there? They're shouting and cussing, and the role play has gone out the window. Like they're like, I attack him. Let's just go straight into PvP. May the best man win. I've got the sword in my hands right now. I'll use it. What is this? Is it like a 3d6? And they go on and on through, do they PvP each other to death? Do you diplomacy everybody to death? Do you intimidate people into making them understand that this sword is your family's right? There's 4 or 5 of them just shouting and screaming and cussing at each other. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And I look over at David, who is at the head of the table because he's the DM, and he's got his hands on his forehead and on his temples like, oh God, what have I done? And he watches his friends just tear each other apart. It's like, I've seen PvP happen in D&D games, but nothing beyond like, hey, your character keeps trying to kill mine, I'm going to blow him out the window with a fireball, and then that's the end of it. Or fighting over bar winches or things like that. Never have I seen something so vicious as them fighting over this sword that I don't remember if it had a name. It probably had like a long, complicated Chinese name, but it was Pandelirium for like 45 minutes. And after a while, I was like, haven't they screamed themselves hoarse yet? And I look over and everybody is they're sweaty. The temperature in the room has gone up. Everybody's sweaty. Their bangs are clinging to their foreheads. A bunch of nerds yelling at each other over a sword that doesn't exist, over a game most of them have never played before. Nobody wanted to give an inch, and they would not agree to do diplomacy. They would not agree to PvP each other because one person was the best at diplomacy, and that's not fair. And one person is the best at honorable dueling combat, and that's not fair. And so they couldn't find a common ground to decide who got this sword, and the game just kind of fell apart right there. And what became of the sword, nobody knows. The 5 families fought over it like children until like the credits rolled in the background and the movie ended prematurely. But everybody went home mad. Everybody went home mad. And me and the 3 other guys that are sitting there playing Mario Party like, this was a great get together, David. Are you okay? Are you still alive over there? David's in the kitchen, leaning on the counter, like he had a great idea, finding something that everybody kind of had a claim to, but it looks good on paper, but it's not good in execution, so like communism. But when you base a campaign around chasing an object, it can turn vicious really quickly. Number one, if it's something like a sword or a magic helmet, something that is meant to be used. And the story doesn't end when you find it. It ends after you've had time to use it. So who gets to use it? Do you put the spotlight on one person, or do they all fight over it? It can be kind of debilitating to a campaign if you find a wish ring and it's got one wish on it, so who gets the wish ring? I don't know. There's really not a fair way to do that. So that's why I like dragon hordes more. You can put like 50 items into a dragon's horde and then throw money on it and then throw furniture and clothes and a portrait of the king and a wardrobe and a bust of a naked woman and just like 90 things into a dragon's horde. And if they all pick one thing to fight over, they won't fight over it for very long because there's 89 other things for them to lay claim to or sell and buy a duplicate of that item or whatever it happened to be. Anyway, so 2 or 3 weeks go by, and again, this was a group of like 10 people, so gathering this many nerds under one roof is kind of a doing nowadays because everybody's so busy. So it was a couple of weeks before all of our schedules realigned. Everybody's had time to cool down. We're not going to fight about it anymore. Games crash and burn for various reasons. That was just one of them. David apologized for setting up a powder keg, let's face it. He said we all learned a lesson from that. David was just the one in the crosshairs, and he apologized, and he paid for the first round of drinks and all that good stuff. So we're sitting around this great big table at like a sports bar, I think, somewhere on campus when I was in college. So we're sitting around this table, and we go, okay, everybody's had a chance to cool down. We're not going to play Five Rings for a while. We're going to just dispense with that sword. That never happened. That's not going to be in the canon anywhere. We're just going to wipe that from our timelines and all that good stuff. We're just going to forget about it. It was a bad idea. I'm sorry. And everybody kind of agreed. And everybody around this table loves everybody else that's around this table because we're a bunch of nerds that get together and throw dice and play pretend, so we're not going to hate each other forever. But that night, man. So, the story of that sword was eventually renamed and crafted into an item, which we kept. It was called the Sword of Friendship Sundered, where we put it into like a generic fantasy weapon. It was a long sword +1 that was like a 3d6 for damage. It's this outrageous weapon. It was a 3d6 for damage, and it was a cursed item. So anybody that had it would get like a -10 to diplomacy, intimidation, and whatever the third one was. I guess most like charisma-based rolls. Innuendo, that's what it was. -10 to innuendo. Like anything where you're trying to convince people to think a certain way, you would get a -10. And because it's cursed, you couldn't get rid of it unless somebody took it from you. So you couldn't like throw it on the ground and be gone, because it would just appear on your hip, and as long as you had it in your possession, you were just cursed with it forever. Now, we never used it, I don't think, in a campaign ever again, but we canonized this this sword that had my friends at each other's throats. And I'll probably put like the official stats for this weapon on the D&D Stories Facebook, but yeah, that was one hell of a game, and I wasn't even in it. I was just to one side, like listening and playing Mario Party, and Jesus Christ, I'd never seen my friends do that ever. Have you ever had that happen, by the way, at a D&D game, like for whatever reason, not necessarily for loot, but for like story-based decisions, or if somebody killed somebody else? Have you ever seen your table just go off like a powder keg? Put that in the comments below. I'd love to hear about that, because I think just about every group has like one person or like one like gigantic argument that just boiled over for whatever reason. Like, do we kill the orc babies, or do we really want to kidnap this asthmatic princess for the rebellion cause, and things like that? Just what caused the biggest argument at your table? For me, I guess I wasn't even at the table, but for me, experience-wise, it was the Sword of Friendship Sundered. So take that into account, DMs. Be warned, fellow players, and I guess that's all for now. So I will see you guys on the next D&D Stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I really love telling D&D stories, and I also really love eating food. So if you'd like to toss a couple of gold pieces into this humble bard's hat, be sure to check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you'd like access to maps, character art, and channel updates too, check out the D&D Stories Facebook. Keep gaming!